I've been through a couple of breakups in my lifetime. Most, if not all, they weren't pretty. But despite that, there were a couple of breakups that I've had in my life that still to this day I can't really wrap my head around, reconcile with, whatever you want to call it, come to terms with. I'm just kind of confused, and at times I get sad about it. I'm being honest here. Now, you might say, are you referring to romantic breakups? No. Listen, I'm the type of person, when I'm over it romantically, I'm over it. It's done. Let's move forward. The breakups that I'm talking about that have been difficult for me are friendship breakups. And so that is what I want to talk about today. More specifically, I want to share 4 things that I guess I won't even say learned, because there's really no learning lesson for this video. It's just things that I've noticed when you go through friendship breakups. And I think it's really interesting because, not to say this can only happen with friendship breakups, but sometimes it's not this huge falling out. Maybe it's just a shift in the dynamic that you and that person have, or you and those people, because friends, you can be friends in a group or whatever. Maybe it's just like a change in that dynamic, and maybe one or you or a couple of you are afraid to kind of bring that up and kind of be like, yeah, it doesn't really, something ain't really feeling right. And that change in dynamic could be for a multitude of reasons, which we'll get into later in this episode. But yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. So if you haven't already, please sit down, relax, get whatever you need to unwind. I don't have my Duncan here with me today, but that's okay. We're just going to do what we need to do. And without further ado, let's get into the episode. So, I know that I did say this is an unscripted podcast, and for the most part it is, but just for full transparency, I do sometimes like to write notes, whether it's on my phone or on a journal piece of paper, because sometimes I just have so much to say that I don't want to keep rambling on and on and on and on and on. And I feel like having notes jotted down allows me to express things in a clear and concise way, but also I realize that the episodes that I've been posting lately have been very long, like 40 to an hour range. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I want to also have a little bit of balance and nuance, because if people do want to just have a quick listen, they can listen to an episode like this. Hopefully, knock on wood, this won't be that long. Anyway, let's get into number 1, which is what I kind of talked about previously, the silent shift. When the energy changes, but no one talks about it. Now, again, the energy changing can be for a multitude of reasons. It could maybe be you or the other person, or both of you at one time, is kind of going through a life change. People might have kids. Maybe the person moved away. Maybe there's a specific habit. Like I know for me, with my friends, there was a point where I stopped smoking for a little bit. Now, listen, they know like I would be off and on the next and then off and on. But there was a there was a point. I feel like we all go through that, like please. But there was a point, okay, where I was like serious. I was committed to the bit, where I was like, you know what? No, like I don't want to do this anymore, and I feel like I just need to at the very least take a step back for a minute. And there was, for me at least, they probably didn't notice it, but for me, I felt like there was a shift, because I no longer was partaking in this thing that we all used to do together. Like that's low key how I feel we bonded with one another. Hey, you want to roll up? Absolutely. Hey, do you want to do? Absolutely. Like, and we would just have those sessions where we would just chill and talk about anything while smoking a bleed. Like, that was, in my opinion, the dynamic of our friendship. Dare I say the backbone of it to a certain extent. So, do I regret that though? No, I don't. Not at all. So many fun memories were made. It was a time. It is what it is. But that is an example of what I mean by one example of what I mean by this change in the dynamic. And I did feel kind of estranged from them for a while. There was a part of me that kind of felt like, okay, dang. Well, now that I'm not doing it anymore, I feel like I can't really connect with them on that level, which I know sounds a little bit crazy, but again, this is just how I feel. I'm just speaking about how I felt. And I kind of was like, are we ever going to be able to hang out without smoking? Or if we do hang out and we're not smoking, like, why doesn't it feel the same as when we were doing that together? And yeah, I just felt scared a little bit for our friendship because I didn't want it to, I think like unconsciously I didn't realize how much doing that act played into our friendship. So when it wasn't there anymore, I got afraid that maybe this was kind of like a kind of like a, not a blindfold in a way, but something that was there to, what am I trying to say? I know what I'm trying to say, but I don't have the word for it. Kind of like a mask in a way, masking our ability to actually get to know one another outside of doing that activity. So without going on and on about that, that is kind of what I mean. And so I feel like another example for me, maybe you can relate. I had a friend and I still think about her to this day. You know what? I'm going to talk about two people. I had a friend way back when I was in, I want to say fifth grade. No, no, no. No, yeah. I don't know, elementary school. And we hung out a lot. For the sake of not exposing her name, I'm just going to call her Amy. Anyway, we hung out a lot. She was like my really good friend when I was a little baby. And I would go to her apartment and we would play outside and we would call each other every day after school. Mind you, we're kids, right? So I'm not saying that it was like this deep friendship. It was probably as deep as a 5-year old or however the hell old I was could get with another person and vice versa. Anyway, she moved randomly one day and I lost contact with her. Literally. Like, I don't know where that girl is. And I have tried to look her up countless times. I talked to my mom about it here and there. Oh, sorry. I talk about it with my mom here and there, like every so often. It really does like damn near bring tears to my eyes because I hung out with her a lot, and then all of a sudden she just didn't go to my school anymore, and I just lost complete contact. That's a long lost friend that I still think about. And then I go on the deep end of, damn, is she even still alive? Like, where is she? Like, I have no sort of traceability. Anyway, it's been a whole thing. I tried to go back to our elementary like school yearbook. I don't even know how to get access to that. It just pisses me off. Anyway, and then the second person, the last person that I'll talk about before we move on to number 2 is another one friend that I was really really, I would consider her, she was like my childhood best friend. For real. We did everything together. I still think about her to this day. She had, at the time, I mean, now that I am older, I can kind of recognize what was going on, but at the time I didn't know that she had a lot going on personally at home. And so there came a point where she was able to decide whether or not she wanted to stay with her family that lived near me, or she could go live with her grandparents. She chose her grandparents ultimately, and so she moved away. There was a period, right, that shift period where it was good at first when she, cuz she would visit back where her I guess immediate family, I'll say, lived. But over time, I think, who knows, maybe that was a lot for her and her grandparents at the time to like keep up with, but also she was getting acclimated at her new school that she went to. So she was making new friends. They had a whole different like vibe and culture over there. So she was kind of changing naturally. I was changing. We were going into high school, no, middle school. So, I mean, you're meeting new people, you're kind of doing your own thing. And then ultimately, she stopped visiting her immediate family. Mind you, I lived like, here's my house, there was another house in the middle, and then she lived right there. So, I mean, we were very, very close to each other, not only like on the friendship side, but physically. And yeah, to it, that entire experience kind of just changed a lot for us. I would say I just feel like we grew into two different people, and we slowly kind of just stopped talking. I'll try to reach out here and there. I'll try to like keep tabs. I know that sounds kind of like stalker-ish, but I'm being honest. But it we don't really talk like that anymore. And so I find myself a lot of the times just like missing that friendship. So anyway, We'll get into the whole emotional side of it later. But that's number one. Let's move on to number two, which is growing in different directions. Now, I guess I kind of spoke about number two a little bit too early because number one was like that shift. But yeah, kind of just harping based off of what I said on point number one, which is again growing in different directions. It could be, like I said, different life changes and things like that. But more specifically on this point, sometimes just because you're growing into different directions, it doesn't automatically mean that your friendship is like doomed. Now, with the girl who moved away with her grandparent situation, I mean, yeah, ultimately we did stop talking with one another. But for example, with the whole smoking thing with my friends that I brought up earlier, where I was talking about how I just felt like that shift, it didn't ruin our friendship though. You know what I'm saying? At least not in my opinion. We're still very good friends. We still talk, we still hang out when we can. Life is busy, you know how it is. But I think I which leads me to the point inside of this number 2 is communicate. You know what I'm saying? I think sometimes I do kind of regret not communicating how I felt to certain friends that I had. But if you can, try to communicate that feeling of growing in different directions and kind of just bring up to the person or your friend group your concern. Like, hey, I really love you guys, or I love you, but I do kind of feel this shift. I don't really know why. Now, the shift can be because of many different reasons. Again, maybe you're kind of realizing that you don't really want to be close to this person anymore. Maybe you're growing and your values don't align anymore. Or maybe this was a doomed friendship from the start, i.e., maybe they were disrespectful to you at times and maybe you overlooked it. Maybe you didn't really feel supported by this friend and you overlooked it. And then now you're at the point where you're like, you know what? I'm kind of done with this. Like, I'm kind of fed up. So, if it's viable, communicate and figure out ways that you can support each other in this era of you both or one or the other growing apart. And I think this is something that I can work on as well. I have a couple friends who have kids, and I obviously do not, but that has, I think, and can kind of change the dynamic of your friendship. Maybe that person can't just be going out all willy nilly at any time of the day because they have a kid now. You know, they have other responsibilities that they need to tend to. And you know, maybe instead of doing the typical things that you once did, like going out late at night, going to bars or whatever it might be, maybe you can kind of figure out a way to incorporate fun activities with said friend that can kind of fit with the area that they're in their life or the era that they're in. So yeah, I wanted to talk about that, and it's okay to kind of feel like guilty for the drift. I think that's normal too, or just uncomfortable. But I do think if it's viable, if it's a friendship that you feel is worth it, and maybe it's just a matter of circumstance and not a matter of them literally being a piece of shit friend or treating you like a piece of shit, um, definitely do that. Okay, let's move on to point number 3, which is grieving. Like I said, still think about those friendships that I've lost, people that I've sort of lost contact with, and it's hard, right? You think about the memories that you've made, the good, the bad, the ugly. And even if you did fall out with that person in a very like extreme way, ultimately you're still going to think about them, or maybe not. Maybe I'm just the only one. But that's, if you are like me, that's completely normal to do. But the other thing I wanted to say with that is sit in that feeling. Don't try to run away from it. Don't try to, you know, completely move on from it if it passes through your mind. Sit with it, feel it. It doesn't have to be forever, right? You could just set maybe like a mental timer. Okay, I'm going to sit with this for a good 5 minutes, think about it, and then I'm going to go on with my day. And then if it comes up again, same thing, 5 minutes. And then, you know what I'm saying? Because I sometimes have a habit of pushing things away at times And not necessarily because I don't want to think about it, but maybe I'm busy at that time and I can't literally focus on that right now. So anyway, I digress. Sit with yourself. Don't be afraid to feel your feelings. Losing friends is hard, it's complicated, and losing anyone. I also wanted to like account for this. I know some people that I know have lost friends like in the physical, not well, in death is essentially what I'm trying to say. So that is also, I'm accounting for all situations where you've lost a friend. But another thing that I wanted to hit on this is reflecting on the friendship isn't always a bad thing. Now, if you left a friendship where it was, a situation where you needed to get out of it, it wasn't serving you not a purpose, but it wasn't benefiting you anyway. It was dragging you down, whatever you outgrew the person, yada, 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 so on and so forth. Then this doesn't necessarily apply. But let's say it's a situation where, again, you kind of fizzle out. You don't really know what happened. Maybe you have an idea or whatever. Wait, before I get there, what I'm trying to say is reflect on the friendship and account for not only where they went wrong, again, excluding what I just said, like if it's someone who was just absolutely treated you like pure shit, obviously, I don't think that you should do, which was what I'm going to say next, is like reflect on you and see where you went wrong. But I'm just saying sometimes it's easy to focus on the other person, and there might be instances where maybe you could have shown up better, things like that. Doesn't mean you had to be as extreme of a bad friend as maybe they were or whatever. But ultimately, what I'm saying is if you can, just kind of reflect on the friendship. And then if it's a situation where it fizzled out, which is what I was trying to say, where you really like just don't know why they stopped being friends with you, maybe they just stopped communicating out of nowhere, if you want to, maybe reach out to that person, not for reconciliation per se, but just for the simple fact of, okay, I want to be a better friend in the future. Like, reach out and ask, hey, I know we don't really talk anymore. I don't really know what happened with our friendship, but I would appreciate it if you could kind of like tell me if there was anything that I did or if there was anything that I could have done better. And I should also add, I guess you don't necessarily have to, it doesn't have to be a situation where things fizzled out and basically you got ghosted. It could be even with a friendship breakup where that didn't happen. Maybe you both mutually agreed to just stop being friends. You can, if it didn't end too terribly, ask the person, like, can you just give me some feedback? Because I want to be a good friend for the next people that I run across. And I think that shows not just like, not only personal growth, but like a sense of self-awareness. So that's just my little thing. Again, there's always a chance where you know it's one of those situations where it's like, girl, no, I'm not going to reach out to anyone. Fuck you, fuck them. I'm done with that. We're moving on, and I completely respect that. So it's completely up to you on how you want to go about that. But last thing for point number 3 is just remembering that everything happens for a reason. If you and that person stop talking to each other, um and if you even feel the urge to maybe go back to a friend who, for example, maybe wasn't the best to you, just remember why that friendship ended. I think about that a lot. And again, this is kind of can be like murky waters because sometimes you don't really know. But just keep that in mind. Moving on to point number 4 is learning when to, and I guess this kind of piggybacks off of my previous one, learning when to let go versus reconnecting. This can be hard to do in any, again, sort of situation that you're in, whether it's romantic or friendship, but we're focused on friendship right now. Listen, again, you got to have some sort of discernment here, but maybe it's one of those situations where sometimes you just needed a little bit of space. And again, space sometimes offers growth. There's a lot of growth that can happen in the space that maybe you and that person weren't talking with each other. And maybe you can have a conversation if it's heavy on your heart and you genuinely feel in your heart, like, okay, I want to reach out to this person and maybe see if we can, you know, fix whatever happened there. Again, only if it's a situation where you feel like, okay, this can be salvaged. But I do want to say that with that, you have to be prepared for rejection. There's always a possibility of being rejected. Being rejected, it sucks. Like, no one wants to extend the olive branch and then you basically don't hear back from that person or whatever the situation may be. It sucks. But that's why I say, like, when you do reach out to someone and you might get rejected, I know it's hard, but try not to internalize that. If anything, that's just further confirmation that that friendship is not meant to be. And you did all that you can do. My mom always says, once you do all you can do, that's it. Like, there's nothing more that needs to be said. There's nothing more that can be done. And don't think of yourself as less than. Or I know sometimes when I've tried to reach back out to people and I don't hear anything, I'm like, bro, like, I'm so stupid. Like, this person doesn't even care about me. Like, whatever. We're not going to go down that road. If you take that brave step, do not internalize it because it has nothing to do with you. Or wait, because maybe it might. I mean, I don't know. Again, discernment. It all just depends on maybe the role that you played in the friendship, splitting. Maybe that person is kind of like, I'm good off you, and sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it is kind of like, oof, I gotta take the hit here, like it's definitely a humbling moment for sure. So I don't really know. I can't say all of what each person's situation looks like. It's going to vary from person to person, but let's say you do have an honest conversation and they you talk about it with the person. You and that person can kind of choose whether or not you want to reconnect and rekindle the friendship that you feel you both have kind of lost. And the beauty about that is it's going to be different. It's not going to be the same, you know? So you have a chance to build something brand new, which I think is pretty good. Or on the other side of it, you might both decide, like, hey, we got some clarity from this conversation. It was nice, but I just feel like we're both at two different places. Maybe they're on a journey of like not looking back, but just moving forward. And if that's the case, complete respect. Or maybe that's you. Whatever the reason might be, at least you got some sort of clarity from the situation. But anyway, I know these weren't necessarily like huge points or topics that I wanted to talk about. I just think every friendship at the end of the day is going to leave you with something good, bad, indifferent, whatever. But those I'm talking about those friendships that truly hit you in your heart, once in a lifetime kind of friendships. The sun is setting. Okay, no, we're still good on lighting. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. How do you feel about friendship breakups? I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I could say here. Don't give up on yourself when it comes to friendships or any relationship at that, but friendships in particular. You will find your tribe, you'll find your person. I really do think that, especially as you get older, making friends is a little bit difficult. It's not as easy per se because it's not like when you're a little kid and you're like, hey, what's your favorite color? Oh, your favorite color's blue? So is mine. Let's be friends. Like, it's very surface level, but as you get older, not only do you have to start looking at people's values and things like that, it becomes a lot more nuanced. It's not as simple as just like you meet someone on the playground at recess and now y'all are best friends. You have to be a little bit more, I guess, cognizant of the people that you choose to surround yourself with. But yeah, overall, that is all that I have for you all. I will let you go. Again, episodes every Monday and Friday. You can watch me on Spotify or listen to me strictly through audio on Spotify. I am now finally available on Apple Podcasts as well. And then I also post on my YouTube channel. However, my YouTube channel is not named Off the Clock with Miguel, blah, blah, blah. It's named my name and then something else. Anyway, I will link it in the description below if you maybe are on Apple Podcasts and you don't have like that video feature that Spotify has. You can just go over there and look on YouTube if you want. So yeah, thank you all for listening. I will catch you all in next Monday's episode. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and happy Friday.